Today is not a day to celebrate, but the arrest of Richard M. Allen of Delphi on 2 counts of murder is sure a major step in leading to the conclusion of this long-term and complex investigation. We are going to continue a very methodical and committed approach to ensure that if any other person had any involvement in these murders in any way, that person or persons will be held accountable. I know that today's announcement will not diminish your resolve, and I hope you have found just a bit of peace in this most complicated world. This is really important. While I know you are all expecting final details today concerning this arrest, today is not that day. Today is not that day. This investigation is far from complete. Prosecutor Nick McClellan, of course, will share additional information about what we can and cannot say, and also explain to you why the probable cause affidavit is temporarily sealed by the court and not available. I am yet again asking you for your patience and please your understanding while our system of due process works. Also remember that all persons arrested are presumed innocent. All persons arrested are presumed innocent. You all will have an innate desire to subjectively interpret and then report what you think. We in the law enforcement realm cannot, and you should never allow us to, talk about what we think concerning facts, but rather discuss and share at the right time what it is we know. The time will come when additional details can be released. But again, today is not that day. It's about Abby and Libby, their families, and this community, this nation, and even our planet. The prosecutor has been very clear with law enforcement about what his expectations are, about what can and cannot be released, shared, or discussed. So we will, of course, comply. If you choose to be critical of our silence, be critical of me, not the front line. These are the folks who have committed their entire lives to a successful conclusion. In other words, a guilty verdict. Again, Nick has been very resolute and very clear, and I'm most grateful for his leadership. And it's going to be really important as we move forward. Please continue offering tips that you would like to share. The many avenues to report will remain open and will be available to all. Please continue doing that. In closing, I stand before you in this church and very place where we held our first briefing nearly 6 years ago, and just hours after the murders of Abby and Libby. Right here. We're not stopping. Pulling in today, I wasn't really sure what emotion I would experience. But peace came over me. And I didn't expect that to happen. And I hope all of you, with all the different responsibilities you have from around the planet today, have felt some of that as well. But remember, we're not done.
Per the court order, we cannot talk about the evidence that's in the probable cause or the evidence that's in the charging information. That will become evident to you at some point and it will be released, but right now is not that day. Today's about Abby and Libby, focusing on them. Mr. Allen has had his initial hearing. He's entered a preliminary plea of not guilty. The matter's been set for a pretrial on January 13th at 9 a.m., 2023, and a trial date of March 20th, 2023 at 9 a.m. He is presumed innocent. We will have an opportunity and day in court when we can present the evidence that we have against him. But until that day, he is presumed innocent. I want to open it up to a few limited questions from the audience. But again, keep in mind, we are not going to talk about the evidence that we have in this case or about the charging information. We cannot. Those things have been sealed by the court.
How would you say that Abby and Libby have taught you in depth that we can remain to continue on with it?
I think probably resilience and understanding the value of each and every day. That today was the day, but I didn't anticipate they ever thought today would be their day. And I feel like I've known them for a long time.
Sure, it is unusual. We don't do it very often in all the cases that we handle here in Carroll County. We did it in this case because the investigation is still open. And while all cases are important, the nature of this case has some extra scrutiny with it. And so my office, felt it was important to seal those records.
The gentleman personally at all, so I've probably seen him, but it's a small county, but
On Friday, correct? Is that what
Well, we were called in on Wednesday and told that they had detained somebody, so we've had a couple more days to process this. I don't feel like I thought I would. I've always said that I would be screaming on the rooftops, but we're not. It's sad. While there's somebody that's been arrested, there is, our lives for 5.5 years have been in a search mode, and that's what we've done. And you get up and it's like, oh, we're not doing that anymore. So we're all just kind of feeling our way and figuring out what our purpose is now. What do we do next? How do we help? That's what we want to know is how do we help now to make sure we have the right person, to make sure there's a conviction, to come to a total final resolution.
Ma'am, are you all fearful that someone else was involved in this that is still at large?
That's certainly a possibility, and that's why we're keeping it open out there, right? That's why the investigators answered that question as well. It was a kind of bittersweet, it's I just know that there's another job, another hill for us to climb ahead of us, but we're up for the challenge, and we're going to keep after it. We're not going to stop.
Why is it important to keep the tip line alive at this point?
Because I want every stone unturned, every bit of information that's out there pertaining to this case. I want the investigative team to have that information.
How confident are you that the police have their man?
That's what the courts will decide, right? But I'm confident. I've always had confidence in the investigative team.
What keeps you hopeful?
Yes, I'm hopeful.
What keeps you hopeful?
The faith and the strength of our family, and the fact of I know how hard the investigative team has worked, and they're nonstop.
Who asked that?
Yeah.
Who asked that?
Lady back here.
I wanted to speak about your faith because I know it was important to you.
If it were your child, would you have an option not to be hopeful?
No, absolutely not.
That's why we're hopeful.
Of course.
You all,
Okay,
can I just ask you one question? Maybe you can put a rumor to rest or something. There's a report going around right now that this Mr. Allen actually processed some photos for the family at the CVS. Do you know if that's accurate?
That is accurate.
Okay, and that he didn't charge the family when they came in to claim the photos?
That is correct.
Okay, and you know that firsthand. We are always careful to be accurate.
All right, one more question.
We know that.
Media coverage of this has been...
They didn't have the gleeful response to all of this, because I can't imagine what it's like to lose a child.
Patty's confirmed to us that at one point Mr. Allen processed some photos for them at the local CVS and didn't make them pay for them. They there was a rumor out there, and they said, "Yep, that happened." Did you know that happened?
I didn't.
What? Disbelief. Like, okay, I'm hearing this, but it's a process.
We expected to be excited and happy and like overjoyed that he's arrested, but now we're dealing with understanding that there's a lot of reopening wounds that's coming with that.
On the time when you guys searched Mr. Logan's property, and Kim Riley, was it Kim's? And he was saying it was because some things didn't add up. Are we still looking at Mr. Logan as possibly
Looking
involved?
at everything and all of it. We're looking at all of it. We said when this happened we were going to start all over.
So you never,
That's what we're doing.
so you never cleared him, Mr. Logan.
We haven't cleared anybody.
Talk about the decision to keep.
Somebody would have asked me 2 weeks ago, hey, do you know this guy? I said, no, don't recognize that name, don't know the face, you know.
This is the type of pain that hurts.
It hurts. We're real people. It's real lives. Some people forget that they are reading, and it becomes entertainment. It becomes a game to some, and they just forget that it's real people living a real nightmare.
How disheartening is it that it appears a person from this community who maybe worked here, it's a small, tight-knit town, and here we are, possibly a neighbor, someone who is familiar with Delphi may be responsible for this, police say.
Yeah, it's a little disheartening that a member of our community could do this. Can do this to somebody within their own community, or just do this, period. But you can never judge a book by its cover,
In terms of certain names, persons of interest, if you will, that have been tossed around. So when you heard this, was your thought, okay, I'm not going to jump to conclusions here until I hear it?
Yeah, we definitely didn't jump to any conclusions, but I think the reality of it, like I said, is still setting in with us. And more importantly, trying to figure out what our path forward is. And that is the prosecution of the case. And so what role do we play there? We're still big advocates, in helping the investigative team out there and driving in information. Because we want to make sure that if there's anything that's out there that law enforcement doesn't know about, we want them to know about it. And especially with this arrest and this person being charged with this, if there's people out there that have anything that's ties to this with this new information and a new person, there's a face with the bridge guy now and a name with the bridge guy, to please call that information in, because this could definitely jar some memories from other people who may have had interactions with him.
And as you both have heard with the prosecutor, McClellan, he has said through the years, look, what we think and what we know are two different things. And we not only have to make an arrest, we do want to make sure the person who's responsible for this does go away for a long period of time, meaning a guilty verdict. And Mike and Becky, I've seen the both of you, we've been on panels together, just the hope you bring to other people who have gone through maybe a crime, an unsolved crime, and just what you've been able to do together in moving forward. And you've always kept Abby and Libby's memory alive. And I know this so well, and I've said to you before, Becky, this is so much more than a case. It's two young girls, and Becky, you said this year was difficult. Every year, of course, is. But the milestones, Becky, graduating from high school, I remember you telling me about a parking spot that she was unable to get. So the wounds are deep, and it's ongoing, right?
Oh, most certainly. You feel it, you live it every day. Kelsey's wedding, every event, vacations. She may not be here physically, but we take her with us. We take her with us everywhere we go and whatever we do. A lot of what we do, a lot of our vacations is based around on honoring Libby.
And Mike, when you were at the press conference, I know you were briefed beforehand. What were your thoughts going through? I know that you've been great with law enforcement, always backing them and them backing you, and they thanked you immensely for this. And they said, look, the tip line's still open, and that means that, look, this is not case closed, right, Mike?
You are correct. It's not. We want to make sure that we have, look under every rock and check every lead, any information that's out there. I've said this, the police don't know what they don't know. And I'm asking for, again, the public's help. And let's just keep the pressure on this. Keep their foot on the accelerator. Let's drive this all the way to a closure. I mean, we got another hill to climb in front of us. We made it to the top of one. Now we got another one in front of us, and we're here. We're not going anywhere. We're gonna make it to the top of the next hill as well.
And Becky, how is Tara doing and Anna doing? And I'm sure you lean on each other.
Yes, we all went in. We went in together. We try to do it as a united front, because that's what we are. In the end, we're all a united front. We're all in this together. We're all after one thing.
And I know that you've been working tirelessly, almost 6 years, to get the word out and saying, look, it just takes 1 minute. I know that you've talked about Libby and the Post-it notes and saying, give me 1 minute, and that's what she always said. Have you felt her through these last couple of days? I guess the question is, what have you been thinking about in terms of Libby?
Well, I think that, I know Kelsey has, and I know Beck has. We all have. And the fact that, that we kind of met this goal, right? The first goal was to get somebody arrested, get the investigative team enough information so they could make the arrest. Now we just have to drive the information in to make that stick and get the prosecutor now. We're kind of switching modes. We're not only help law enforcement, but now we're going to make sure we help the prosecutor. But and knowing that, I think Libby knows now that we're down here working hard, and I'm sure she's looking down on us and knowing how hard that we've put a lot of effort, the last 5.5 years into this, and I'm sure she's smiling on us.
Prosecutors have to make the probable cause affidavit public, which didn't happen in this case. So tonight, our Bob Siegel shares insight into why this decision is raising so many eyebrows.
A probable cause affidavit explains why someone is charged with a crime, and the law says that document must be publicly filed once the charge takes place. But in this case, that is not happening.
The probable cause and the charging information has been sealed by the court.
The prosecutor says he asked a judge to keep the document under seal because the investigation is ongoing and investigators want more tips from the public.
It is surprising.
Novella Neediff spent 2 decades as a public defender and now teaches law at Indiana University. She says she's never heard of a prosecutor keeping a probable cause affidavit secret in such a high-profile case. She says releasing the information helps ensure due process for the defendant and allows the public to ask important questions. In this case, both of those things are in jeopardy because the case is essentially being kept secret. A hearing will be held to challenge that decision, but that could be weeks away.
It's usual to have a complaint or a charging document sealed prior to arrest and up to the time of the initial appearance, which I'm not sure if it was over the weekend or earlier today. But for some reason, the prosecution asked for this complaint to be continued under seal, which is somewhat unusual because you now have a defendant that's charged. He has trial dates coming up, and he needs to have those charging documents to see what the evidence is against him. And that obviously is what the prosecution is trying to withhold, for at least for the time being. I think what you alluded to earlier is probably the best explanation. They have reason to believe that other people were involved either in the actual crime or the cover-up after the fact. And they want to have time to run those leads down without exposing to the public and, by extension, the person that might be involved, what that evidence is.
Right. Would you be surprised at this point if they weren't looking for someone else?
Oh, I would be shocked for them to ask a judge to keep the complaint under seal, to keep the affidavit under seal without a real justification would be a big stretch. And the judge obviously has some idea what the basis for that request was, otherwise they wouldn't have approved it.
Makes sense. All right, former federal special agent Ross.
Today's a good day for the city of Delphi, and I and for the county and literally for the state and the nation. But I really hope that after today, people start healing just a bit, start trusting again, and not worrying about every single thing like they've done up to this point. That's been very hurtful to see that happen. That's for us to worry about, not for our citizens, but it's certainly something that we couldn't prevent.
Living in Delphi before, during, and after that day. Superintendent Carter here now on the red couch. I want to start with taking us to the day when you knew you had the evidence and you could actually not announce it, but that you could make the arrest. What was that day like?
First, thank you for welcoming me here. It was surreal, and I was not for us. I was so excited about the family, to be able to talk with the family and to the community, and maybe maybe now this is going to start that process of healing. That would be my hope.
Yeah. Can you dive into that? This community was rocked. The country was in a different way, perhaps, because of the innocence of 2 8th graders.
I've said all along, it's every town USA.
Yeah.
And I think that's the dynamic of how this has grown and how it's gained such momentum, Angela. But to see it now, and to see maybe that community that's become so special to me and to all of us, start that process of getting back to some semblance of normalcy. It warmed my heart, quite frankly.
You work so closely with your team, all of the state troopers, the detectives, the prosecutor's office, the U.S. Marshals, the Sheriff's Department. When it came to saying, okay, now we have this, we know this is going to get out, how do we do it? And we are only going to say his name, and we're going to give the mugshot. Right. How does that discussion look? Is it an easy discussion? Do you debate it? How does that even come together?
Well, the debate's good for everything,
Absolutely.
right? So there certainly was a lot of debate with strategy throughout this entire process. But I felt enormous responsibility, but not near the responsibility that those frontline detectives felt. So my job was to support them in everything that they did, not question them, but to support them. And I hope that I did that. I know I did it to the best of my ability. The strategy with release, we've always realized the best way through trouble is right up the middle. And you guys just take it. I mean, gosh, it comes to you. Just best way through trouble is right up the middle. And that's what I see you guys doing all the time.
We definitely hold each other together. As soon as we have a thought like, we don't want to be here anymore, we don't want to go through this anymore, we just keep pushing through it, and we push through it together, and I think that's what helps us a lot.
So we're going to do what we always think is right. Not necessarily what people want to hear, but we're going to do what we believe is right. And gosh, we look back on our whole lifetime, and we have, dang, I wish I'd have done that differently, but I don't think I was doing it knowing it was wrong. So that's what we did.
Probable cause. This has become, wow, this really blew up actually on my Facebook page. I was surprised that I have like 1,000 people and about half of them are angry. It is very rare that a probable cause would be sealed, and we wouldn't have even something that showed a little information, redacted everything, but something that just said, we have evidence here, here's how this looks. To have it all under seal, very rare. I'm actually a little surprised that people were upset at us that we would at least request that the judge look at it and say, okay, is this really how this should be, and it should be under seal. You understand that that is our job, and you would, I'm guessing, expect us to request that.
I would, and I do. I think that you guys do a really good job of maintaining that stability in the middle someplace.
Yeah.
And this is rather unusual.
Yeah.
But it's not going to be forever.
Yeah.
This is very complex, and just since less than 48 hours ago, we have over 200 new additional tips. So we've still got a lot of work to do, but I'm proud of where we are.
Can you characterize any of those tips? If you could say, well, it's kind of what we have gotten, or like, whoa, we've gotten something. I mean, I know you can't talk specifics.
No, I'll say that. I'll say to everybody watching this morning, every one of those matter. Every single one of them matters. So if you think it's a little bit unusual, tell us. Let us figure that out. Now, we're not always going to tell you what we know until the time is right. We'll never tell you what we think.
So that's kind of where this is right now.
Well, you know, I mean, I want to ask you 1,000 questions, but I know that we have we have a relationship, and I know not to step over that because I do respect you. I trust you. I know you've worked hard. You were a man of character when you said we have an arrest. We will let everyone know. You were a man of your integrity. You gave us that, and we appreciate that, and we've always enjoyed working with you. And we congratulate you.
Well, and I the congratulations are, kind of a side note to all this. But
it's important.
It is. I appreciate that. It really goes to the people that have done all this work. It's been just an amazing experience of humility and of partnerships with the Sheriff's Office and the City PD and all of our federal partnerships. And that's cliche sometimes, but it's so real now. It's so real now, and we're not done yet.
No, and especially when you look at, I mean, my daughters they would have been my daughter's age. They should be in college, and it's disgusting. And it's sad. So I think for us to be able to, as a community, be able to say that hopefully someone will be held accountable is important. So thank you.
Sure is.
This is the email investigators sent directly to the judge, the prosecutor, and the state court administrators to get more answers about the arrest of Richard Allen. Just hours after we sent this email, the court decided some of the information being kept secret should be publicly released. We now know court records show Allen's initial bond was set at $20 million. We have an online case summary showing past and upcoming court dates. We have a case number, so the public can now follow details and events in the case. Judge Benjamin Diener granted a request by 13 News to release all those details. And following our questions, the court also posted this notice, setting a date for a public hearing for the judge to determine whether important records in the case will remain under seal. All of that now appears on the state's public court website, where anyone can see it, instead of being hidden like it has been for the past 6 days since charges were first filed. What we still do not have is the detailed probable cause affidavit, which details why police believe Allen is responsible for the deaths of the 2 Delphi girls. That is supposed to be public, and it's still being kept under seal. That will be the focus of the public hearing coming up on November 22nd. The judge says keeping that important document under seal has created a difficult situation for the court. Today, Judge Diener copied 13 News on an email to state court administrators. He wrote, "Just so the world knows, the Carroll Circuit Court consists of me, Benjamin A. Diener, the judge. My court reporter was hired Friday and began Monday. My bailiff answers the phone, has no experience and no knowledge about legal process. Thankfully, there is a court administrator that has experience, but she has duties regarding Carroll Circuit and Carroll Superior Courts. That is it. So, I am begging for some assistance to shield me, the court, from this storm, so that I, the court, can keep running the court." The state court administration is providing guidance to the judge on how to handle all the questions. 13 News is continuing to push for the probable cause affidavit because by state law, it is considered a public document. Still lots of information we don't know.
How did we get from here to here?
Well, I think that, remember, I've said from the very beginning, since 2017, a sketch is a sketch, it's not a photograph. That's the first time I've seen that.
Really?
Yeah. And I've also indicated over time that I think once we get to where we are today, we'll be able to look at the similarities of the 2 sketches and make a photograph, which will be Richard Allen. So I think there's a little bit of both. And I don't regret the strategy to do what we did.
I asked Carter about the search of the Wabash River and if it was related to Kagan Klein and a deal that he may have made with prosecutors. Carter said that all that information will come out in the probable cause. And I also asked him, will the probable cause answer all of our questions? And he said it will not. But he did say that we, the state police, have arrested Richard Allen, and they are still searching for anybody else that may be involved in this case.
And with curly hair was released. So I had this question. 2 years into the investigation, after we got the initial sketch, we were told to not rely on that sketch anymore, that this was a new sketch that came out that looked completely different than the original. But when we see the mugshot of Richard Allen, he looks mostly like that initial sketch. So why the change 2 years into someone that didn't look anything like the person that we were presented with on Monday?
Well, I'll answer the question in 2 parts. One, isn't that amazing? that he looks a lot like one and a little bit like the other, depending upon the eye of the beholder, right? And I've said all along those sketches are not photographs. There are reasons that we structurally, or not structurally, but logistically changed the investigative strategy throughout the middle of this in multiple phases. Some were not even recognized, nor did they have to be. But those detectives are going to base what they're going to do based upon what they know. And what they know comes from the people that live in that community and around the world, literally around the world. So I think that was the absolute right decision at the time to do what they did.
The statute that he's charged under, the murder charge, also indicates that to have that charge, he has to have committed another crime like rape, child molestation, human trafficking, something along that line. Is he charged properly?
He is, and those questions will be answered in due time, and they certainly should come from the prosecutor, not from me.
Right.
But eventually, when that PC is released, it'll be clear.
Since Allen's arrest, Indiana State Police have received more than 300 tips about this case. I asked Carter if they are looking for others. Is there somebody else out there?
Right now, we have arrested Richard Allen, and that's what the courts have allowed us to do. We are going to be searching for anyone involved in this case until it's over. Mm-hmm. And today's no different than that.
There's been a lot of activity on this today. Kagan Klein, they had 5, the prosecutor dropped or dismissed 5.
I did see that this morning.
Is there any correlation between those charges being dropped and the search that was performed in the Wabash River?
No, absolutely not.
Has he?
I think he was charged with 30 counts. They've dropped 5, he still has 25, so it's important to report that too.
Right.
The case has not been dropped against Keaton Klein.
I asked Superintendent Carter if Klein had been cooperative, and he declined to discuss Klein any further. Now a new judge must decide whether to unseal the probable cause for Richard Allen. The probable cause, I suspect, is going to answer a lot of questions that I have here and that we talked about on Monday. Will it answer all of our questions? Or is there still...
Remember, this case is 2,100 days old, almost. And the facts in their totality will come out at trial. And not until then. I can appreciate the desire for our citizens to have these questions answered. And my response to that is it will come. But if any of us said something that would be detrimental to the criminal prosecution of the person or persons that killed Abby and Libby, and I was responsible, you should hold me accountable too.
As Fox 59's Russ McQuaid shows us, the petition and the order expose the stress that Carroll County is under with this investigation.
That's right. This order from Judge Benjamin Denier uses the phrases like bloodlust and toxic insistence on public information when it grants the request to put Richard Allen's safekeeping in the hands of the Department of Correction.
We still don't know all that was said during Richard Allen's initial hearing on 2 murder charges during a closed hearing at Carroll County Circuit Court last Friday.
Quite frankly, I've never seen, after the charges are actually filed, an initial hearing has taken place. I've never seen a case where the evidence is sealed. That's a new concept to me.
But this court order signed today by Judge Benjamin Denier cites the, quote, public's bloodlust for information and, quote, the imminent danger of serious bodily injury or death in keeping Richard Allen locked up away from the community he's called home for almost 20 years for his own good.
I really, really hope that now that we're in this phase of prosecutorial process and due process, because everyone's innocent until they're proven guilty.
The judge's order indicates at his initial hearing last week, Allen said he would hire his own attorney and was clad in protective gear to keep him safe from the public. Allen's My Case file does not list whether or not an attorney has made an appearance on his behalf, even though the clock is ticking on the defendant's speedy trial constitutional right.
If the person is kept in custody, if he doesn't bail out, then he has to be tried within 6 months, and the trial needs to happen within a year if he gets out.
Meanwhile, details of the case against Allen remain a secret about why investigators think he killed Abby and Libby and what they may have found in his house during a search 2 weeks ago.
You're continuing to put out search warrants and work with the police on getting more information. more evidence.
Allen is due a week from today to tell the court if he has an attorney or if he needs the judge to appoint him one, and then 5 days later there will be a hearing on whether to unseal the case so that we can all learn more about what investigators think why he killed those two girls outside of Delphi.
Power that the judge in the Delphi murders has now taken action and recused himself from presiding over that case.
Karen has the latest. Fill us in, Karen.
Well, Allen County Judge Fran Gull will now take over as the special judge in the Delphi murder case against Richard Allen. Circuit Court Judge Benjamin Diener, again, as you mentioned, has recused himself. Now, a judge, we've learned, does not have to give a specific reason for recusing himself from a case. Diener reportedly asked state court administrators for help dealing with what he called a brewing storm of requests from the public to release case information. Now, he also says he and his family don't feel safe. Now, Diener also says some members of the public have shared content about his family on YouTube, including sharing photos of his family. He wants the public to keep his family out of all of this. Coming up at 6 o'clock, we look more into this breaking news.